Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I just finished reading this book a couple of weeks ago and I haven't been able to come up with one thing I disliked about it, which is why I am giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I've been wanting to read this book for quite a while. I was hearing a lot of buzz about it last summer, and then the Taylor Swift Eras Tour docuseries came out and she was reading it. And I just knew I had to get my hands on it eventually. It took me a while because I typically read my books secondhand and I wasn't able to find this one at the thrift store. Usually I'm able to track down a lot of newer, more popular books, but for whatever reason this one was evading me. Then I got a Kindle, so I finally caved and got it new on the Kindle. And I honestly couldn't be any happier with the timing. I feel like I read it exactly when I was meant to read it. The ones that I wait the longest for are always the ones that resonate with me the most. Anyway, let's dive in. Firstly, I just want to make my love for the title of this book public. As camp director T.J. Hewitt reminds us in the story, the God of the Woods directly refers to Pan of Greek mythology, the god of the wilderness who would shriek in the forest, scaring all nearby travelers and animals. Etymologically, this is where the word panic comes from. Given that the entire story is about the panic of multiple people, I think that it's such a flawless title. And as an etymology nerd, I just love that the author used it. This was the kind of book that had me guessing right up until the very end. I had my thoughts and theories, none of which turned out to be correct, but when the big reveal happened, I literally went, oh, I should have known. I love when that happens, when it's right in front of your face, but you're just not seeing it. For anyone who needs a refresher or hasn't read the book and doesn't want to, I'm going to do a quick summary, and that means that if you haven't read the book and you do want to, you should probably stop here because we are going to be getting into spoilers. So, The God of the Woods is a dual mystery, multi-perspective, multi-timeline story about a girl who goes missing from summer camp in 1975. That girl's name is Barbara Van Laar, and her brother Bear went missing over a decade before, never to be found from the same campsite. The story follows various campground staff as well as friends of Barbara and Bear as they try to uncover what happened to her and in turn what happened to her brother. Barbara is what her family describes as troubled. She is a punk-loving, black eyeliner-wearing teen girl who appreciates art and anything far from mainstream. She's rebellious as a direct result of her distant parents, her father, Peter, who is just completely emotionally unavailable, and her mother, Alice, who is so hopped up on pills as a result of her son's vanishing that she can hardly function. Barbara's disappearance opens up a real can of worms, unraveling threads tied to Bear's vanishing 14 years prior. The reader really understands one thing that is crystal clear. The Van Laar family does not care who goes away for the crime as long as their image remains pure. There are so many elements that make this story as twisty and intriguing as it is, mostly the amount of different perspectives, which I think is really fun. I know that some people have their gripes with this in this particular story, but I really enjoyed it. We have Louise, the innocent camp counselor, being framed for the crime by her abusive, pretentious boyfriend, John Paul. You have Jacob Slitter, a prison escapee who was formerly accused of killing Bear, but never charged for the crime. There's Tracy, Barbara's awkward best friend who hardly knows her at all. There's Judy, the cop who wants to do right, and Captain La Rochelle, who doesn't really seem to care what's right as long as he gets the credit. It's such a layered story with so many fine details worth paying attention to. In the end, we learn that Bear was tragically killed by his own mother, who took him out in a rowboat during a thunderstorm at the age of 8. It's tragic, but also completely feasible once you get to know Alice as a character. Barbara, unlike her brother, willingly escapes her family. Just as the family initially suspected, it is a runaway situation, one that Barbara has been planning for months. She takes off in the middle of the night to her friend's isolated cabin in the woods, planning to hide out there for the next just 5 years until she's 18 and can legally distance herself from the Van Laar clan. One of my favorite quotes from this book is this: "To be a human is complex and often painful. To be an animal is comfortingly simple and good." This is thought by Louise, but it fits exactly what Barbara is thinking when she goes off to this cabin. She longs to be a critter. She longs to live off the land without the complication of relationships or the heartache of humanity. And I think that this quote in particular is really great early on foreshadowing of what Barbara is going to do. Let's quickly talk about why Barbara might want to run away from her family. The Van Laars are preparing to ship Barbara off to school at Elan. Elan was a school founded in 1970 in Maine with the focus of rehabbing and reforming the naughty children of very, very rich people. This school was manipulative, abusive, and flat out evil to its pupils. Students were watched at all times by both faculty and their peers, and any infraction could lead to severe punishment. Some punishments included the ring, in which students would have to go into a boxing ring and fight each other. It often got brutal and bloody. There was also what they called general meetings, where the accused student had to stand in front of an assembly of their peers and teachers and be berated by all of them. The whole goal of this school was to strip away all of its students' dignity by humiliating them at any chance it was given. People go so far as to call Elan a cult all the time. So it really does make sense that Barbara would rather run into the woods than go to this school. I mean, there's no questioning the intent there. Elan aside, Barbara's entire childhood is spent living in her deceased brother's shadow. She experiences no love, affection, or pride from the people who make up her family. When Alice decides to send Barbara to camp, the book says, "A whole summer without Barbara, her rages, her storms, the hours she spent weeping aloud, disturbing the staff. How pleasant it would be to have these months all to herself." Notice here how the staff's thoughts and opinions about the family are more of a concern to Alice than her own weeping child. It is all about image with the Van Laars. It takes precedence over absolutely everything, even each other. Barbara is neglected. She is denied food, denied any sense of individuality. Her entire purpose in life was to be a boy, and since she failed that, it's like she's being eternally punished. She is expected to be quiet and to sink into the background like her mother and grandmother before her, and her refusal to do so lands her in constant trouble. And this fight for her own identity is so often lost. Take, for example, that her mother paints over her bedroom mural without so much as a second glance. Now, I do want to talk about the paint. It's really important to note here that the paint color Alice chooses is fawn pink. This perfectly encapsulates Alice's feelings toward Barbara. Alice has always fawned, and here I'm referring to the fear response. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Barbara is a fighter, something that Alice always wishes she could have been. She spends most of her chapters telling the reader that she wishes she could have been different in many ways. Smarter, stronger, braver. She's jealous of her daughter's freedom, and that much she tells us herself. The book says, "Never once in Alice's life had she felt the freedom to do something like this, to simply decide, I'm going to paint a mural today, and then undertake the project." But at the same time, she's not only jealous, she's also annoyed. She wants Barbara to be a fawner like her. And as jealous as she may be of Barbara's creativity and singularity as a person, it would be much easier for Alice and for her marriage if Barbara would just blend in a little. Alice also mentions that fawn pink is the same color she chose for Barbara's nursery when she was a baby. This is signaling that she wishes Barbara would go back to that state, as in infancy, individuality doesn't really exist yet, and therefore cannot create problems. It's Alice's way of wanting her daughter to go back to being mindless and spineless, which is why fawn pink specifically is so important, and the author is pushing this. If you don't believe me, take a second look at the cover of the book. As always, I want to finish off with my favorite quote from the novel. This is from Louise's perspective, and it says, "She kept her wishes quiet, writing them only in journals, summoning them to the forefront of her mind whenever a birthday or a well or a star presented her with the opportunity to make them known to the universe." What a pretty way of framing yearning, which there is so much of in this novel. Yearning for a lost loved one, yearning for family, yearning for belonging, for friendship, for escape. As much as there is panic in this story, there is yearning. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I wouldn't classify it as a thriller, as I think a lot of people do, but rather as a mystery. It was eerie and intense, but it never really scared me. And sometimes it's nice to have a book that keeps you on your toes without giving you nightmares, so I really liked that about it. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you read this book? Did you like it? Do you agree or disagree with my analysis? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed, and happy reading.